the perfect segue, because the next trend actually is that people are really struggling to find information they need. So almost a third of employees are waiting days or longer for vital information, and more than half have been unable to find digital documents, because people can't learn from what they can't find. Like you said, discovery is an issue. And like you said, most of the time it's because resources are scattered in too many places. It's not at the end of one search. So the reason people are waiting so long for information is because when they search, they don't find it. So they have to ask someone, and then they're at the kind of behest of that person's schedule for how long they can reply. And most people are searching because they've got a real pressing need. Like if I can't add people to the system and there's like 100 new customers to add to the system, I can't wait days for someone to reply on Slack about how to do it. So yeah, first of all, I guess, Nelson, what are your thoughts on why is this happening, and why is it so damaging that everything's scattered and no one can find it?
Yeah, I mean, I saw that survey as well. I think it's by AppSpace, and it amazed me that, just imagine that, like how much that's slowing down productivity if for every information or knowledge request you're having to wait days to get that information back. And I think a big part of this is actually a hangover from a shift from being full-time in the office to very quickly moving to remote and hybrid. And the reality is a lot of organizations just didn't have the infrastructure to be able to enable working hybrid and remotely, right? It's the classic case of a lot of companies didn't have knowledge captured and centralized, and they were just so used to spinning on their chair and asking the person next to them, and they got used to that kind of asking my manager or asking my peer a question as and when I need it. And the moment you started working remotely or hybrid, what happens is that turns into basically annoying interruptions on Slack and Teams, right? And you start to become aware of that virtual shoulder tap is basically very inefficient and quite annoying after a certain point if the same person is getting asked the same question over and over again. So it's just a reality that a lot of companies weren't prepared for this. And so where we need to move to be able to address this is really looking at building a search first culture around how we think about knowledge and learning. And it's this idea that we capture and bring together all of our learning and knowledge and skills into a single searchable place. Like, for example, our customers, we have integrations with Slack and Teams, and some of the best use cases I've seen is, right now we transfer a lot of knowledge on Slack, right? I ask you a question, Gary, you answer that question. That answer gets lost in a stream of conversation. Someone else is going to ask you that same question on Slack, and you're stuck. You're having to answer it again. But we've seen our customers use How Now to capture that answer and turn it into a nugget that gets saved in How Now. Now, what that means is the next time someone needs that answer, instead of coming to you, Gary, you're now building a search first culture where you search first. And if you don't find the answer, now you ask. And so that really comes to a broader question of, do you have a single front door to all of your learning and knowledge? And most often teams that we see don't have that, right? They're having to go to 10 different places to find the learning and knowledge they need. SharePoint, OneDrive, LMS, third-party content library. And that's just some of the internal sources. Then you've got external publication. Now, just imagine the amount of friction and effort that will take. And the reality is we're all busy. And if there's too much friction, we try once and then we're like, nah, you know what, it's too hard. Either that or L&D are getting the question of, where do I find this again? And as an L&D professional, do you really want to sit there with your job being that person who kind of gives you directions to finding things? And so I think the problem we need to overcome is there's a big, diverse learning and knowledge ecosystem out there. And we need the right technology to bring that together to create that single front door to all of our learning, knowledge, and skills.
The data from the rest of that AppSpace report really supports that as well, because people's biggest bugbear was that their tech didn't speak to each other, or they were using too many tools in the company. And actually a lot of, I think it was 67% said they weren't completely satisfied with their current workplace tools, and 35% want to use less tools in their workplace. And I guess part of it is, like you said, sometimes we take a very short view of what legacy tech means. Like, oh, it's like a tool from 20 years ago. But like you said, if you were using it 5 years ago and it doesn't work for you anymore, then it is legacy tech because it doesn't solve your current problems. And that's the perfect example. You know, all these scattered things worked when we were the office together and I could ask you. But now we've got people working in different time zones, different locations, different hours. We can't have this repeat question thing that interrupts people's day.
Yeah, absolutely, Gary. And I think what hybrid and remote work has accelerated is the consumerization of work tech, right? Is we're at home using consumer products whilst also using work products, right? And so now the comparison is happening in real time, right? I'm going from an app I'm using in my personal life to the app I'm using at work. And now the kind of discrepancy and the gap between the two bits of tech is even more in your face. And naturally, people are going to push back saying, why can't it be as easy to use as the things I use in my personal life? And we're going to hear more demands from employees, and rightly so. And this does really force us to ask questions around, is the tech that we have right? And I completely agree with your point. It's legacy tech if it's no longer solving your problem.